Where's your T-shirt, Mr.
I have the distinct pleasure to introduce Tom and Jean Mork. Tom and Jean have been friends of mine and Deb's for a long, long time. We won't talk about how long because it would make us feel really old. But Tom is the president of Lakeview Bank. And you can see just by the way we're dressed that I'm the more informal one. Tom tends to be a little buttoned down, but I'm assured that when we're actually on this bike ride that he's actually going to just wear his biking stuff and not a coat and a tie, right? But just as a brief way of introduction, Tom and Jean have lived in the community for a long time. Again, Tom's been involved with the bank. They've really made a commitment to be supportive of the community, all the way from Tom's participation in Rotary to the bank's Legacy Award and affirming good things that happen from students to adults in the community, and all kinds of other things that are volunteer activities that you folks have been involved in, from the schools to other things. But most importantly, I'm just really privileged that they've chosen over the last few years to be very courageous and talk about their story, their family story in terms of mental health challenge. And it's been inspiring to me personally. And with your story of your daughter Christine and her success to move back toward healthfulness, and also your daughter Jen and how the family has kind of come together. And I know there's been some significant challenges with that. I as well have had some challenges in my family. That story was in the newspaper this last week. I'm not here to talk about that though. I'm here to let you share about Tom's Big Ride, which is the t-shirt I'm wearing. And I'm very excited about this because it's given me the chance to step up and go along for the ride with Tom and some others as we hope to bring to light and help people share stories of their journey with mental health challenges, as well as how they can ensure that they stay healthy. So, great. You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
Mayor Little, Council Members LeBeau and Anderson and Swecker, City Attorney Knutson and City Administrator Miller, thank you so very much for the opportunity to be here this evening to highlight Mental Health Month in May and to shine a light on this pervasive illness and to share a little bit about Tom's Big Ride ultimately. First of all, a few facts and figures from the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI as you'll hear me refer to it, about mental illness challenges in our country. In any given year, 1 in 4 adults will experience mental illness of some range, ranging from anxiety on one end of the mental illness spectrum to depression to a wide range of disorders, whether they be eating or obsessive compulsive, post-traumatic stress, bipolar, borderline personality, all the way to schizophrenia at the other end of the spectrum. That means that even in a small business like mine with about a dozen employees, on any given day, statistically speaking, 3 or 4 of my employees may be struggling to concentrate and focus on their jobs, not to mention the stress that they are likely experiencing in their relationships outside of the workplace. In fact, the most recent estimates are that the economic cost of mental illness to the American economy exceeds $100 billion. That's billion with a B, every year. 1/2 of all chronic mental illness begins by the age of 14 and 75% by the age of 24. And there are often long delays, sometimes decades, between the first appearance of symptoms and when people actually seek help. 70% of youth in our juvenile justice systems have at least one mental health condition, and at least 20% have a severe mental illness. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and it's more common than homicide by a margin of better than 2 to 1. And more than 90% of those who die by suicide had one or more mental health disorder. And this statistic, sadly, although military members comprise less than 1% of the United States population, veterans represent 20% of suicides nationally. About 22 American heroes die each day by their own hand. If we lost 22 each day on the battlefield, we would have a huge national outcry. Depressing? Sobering? Frightening? Challenging? I would say yes to all of the above, but We can also choose to look at it as an opportunity. After experiencing every one of those emotions some 5 years ago during the depths of the banking crisis that we experienced, and after our daughter Christine was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I decided that I needed to do something about it. So what started rather comically with a wrong turn onto the Pacific Coast Highway during an organized bike ride that I participated in California 4 years ago eventually morphed into what is now Tom's Big Ride, which is a 2,100-mile bicycle adventure over 39 days up the Mississippi River Valley from Venice, Louisiana, which is the end of the road in Louisiana, all the way up to the headwaters of the Mississippi River in Lake Itasca. It's to benefit the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's to bring awareness to mental illness, and most importantly, in my estimation, it's intended to eliminate that pervasive stigma associated with mental illness. So as of today, I'm being joined by some 20 other riders along the route, each of whom has raised or is raising at least $1,000 to benefit NAMI. And combined with the generous support of more than a half dozen corporate sponsors and well over 100 donors, we've now raised $47,000 toward our $100,000 goal to benefit NAMI. And in fact, 3 other riders, including Council Member Anderson, will join me for the entire 2,100-mile trip. So you're going to have to excuse him from a few council meetings this summer. Of course, there is room for more if you have some kind of burning desire to spend 5 to 7 hours a day on a narrow bike saddle for anywhere from 1 to 29 days of actual riding. It's not too late to sign up to participate in Tom's Big Ride. But if that isn't your inclination, what can you do? Well, first of all, each of you has supported Tom's Big Ride financially, and for that we are deeply grateful to each of you as council members. But you can tell others about Tom's Big Ride. Word of mouth to a low-budget operation like ours is absolutely priceless. You can share our website address, which is on the board, www.tomsbigride.org. You can like us on Facebook. You can share our posts, follow us on Twitter. But most importantly, tell your story if you have one. When people in leadership positions in the business and local community are willing to be vulnerable by sharing their own challenges with mental illness, only then, I believe, will others find similar courage and strength to do the same thing. And bit by bit, we can eliminate the stigma of mental illness. And although it's already been alluded to by Doug, I do want to acknowledge his courage in sharing his family story of some 13 years ago. It took an immense amount of courage for Doug to be public about what happened to his family. And we talked about it a long time, and I just want to commend Councilmember Anderson for that courage. I know it's made a difference already. I know people have spoken up about their own challenges as a result of him being vulnerable, and I would only encourage the same from you. So, one parting thought. I live with high cholesterol, which, if left untreated, will eventually lead to my demise. But I'm very comfortable telling anyone who asks, or even if they don't ask, about my blood chemistry. But for people who are afflicted with bad brain chemistry leading to mental illness, the openness which with they can share their chemistry is limited by the stigma imposed on the illness by society. And I believe it's only when we can freely talk about brain chemistry as comfortably as we can about blood chemistry will we eliminate the stigma of mental illness. Thank you very much for this time. It's been a privilege to be here. I do want to introduce my wife, Jean. I might have come up with the idea of Tom's Big Ride, but she's done all the work.
proclamation first or comments first?
We'll go to Councilmember Anderson.
So you can start with, I just knew she wanted to say something.
Okay.
Maybe they can stay up here or something.
Yeah. We'll wait. And if we could have you come back to the podium for a few comments too.
You're not done with me yet.
No, oh no. We'll start with Councilmember Swecker.
I find it interesting getting a little emotional up here, and I'll try to keep myself composed. 1 in 4. Everyone knows someone that is suffering from some form of mental illness, mental disease. Bank presidents, CEOs, husbands, wives, daughters, a gas station attendant. So I really appreciate not only the fact that you are bringing to light the stigma, because that's really what's most important. Everybody knows someone, if they're not suffering themselves, that has some sort or is dealing with some sort of a mental illness. So I will wear this as I think I know 4. I'm not one. Bullshit. But what's really impressive is that your commitment to this. I mean, riding 2,100 miles in 30 days to bring awareness. One of the things that the City of Lakeville is starting to do is we've created this Chemical and Mental Health Awareness Coalition that I am part of. So is Jean, so thank you. We'll work towards, now that we have a mission, we'll move forward. But it's so important given what society is going through. You don't realize how much and how difficult the times are when we go through a recession, and as a bank president, you feel the hits financially, but emotionally there are so many people that are going through so many other things. So thank you for being part of bringing it to light in this community, and we'll be working together on the coalition, but I really appreciate the good work that you're doing.
And you're very welcome. It's our pleasure, it really is.
Very good, thank you.
Councilmember LeBeau.
Tom and Jean both, the courageousness and Councilmember Anderson is overwhelming, and I've heard it from a lot of people with what came out in the paper this weekend and how awesome it is that you're willing to step forward. But I also want to wish each and every one of you and anyone who's willing to travel with you hedge protection around all of you. Many blessings for some very safe travels, for some very good stories that come out of it, and for some health healing stories that come out of it. So I wish you well.
Thank you.
I think it's great that there's this big buildup to the ride, right? This 2,100-mile ride. But you're doing so much before the ride that's making a difference. We had the opportunity to meet Councilmember LeBeau's house for your fundraiser, and you had people talking about an issue that people don't want to talk about. And you've brought a ton of people together around an issue, which I think is just vital for a community to survive together. We're going to see a lot of updates about the ride.
You will?
And I look forward to that, but I think it's so important what you've done before the ride. So
Great.
I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Miller, because I know Councilmember Davis wrote a note to you as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
Mayor and Council and Tom, Councilmember Davis couldn't be here tonight, but he did ask that I read the following. With all the tragic events here in Lakeville, particularly around suicides over the past 6 months, mental health wellness is something we should all be concerned about in our community. I would encourage you to support Tom's Big Ride in any way you can. Thank you to Tom and Councilmember Anderson for raising money for such a worthy cause.
Terrific. Good. Thank you.
And we will turn this back to Councilmember Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I do have one comment I would like to make, and I think that one of the important things to understand, I'm going to try to do this, maintaining my composure. One of the most important things to understand about the story that was in the paper, and when you go out to Tom's Big Ride blog, and you can read more of the story in terms of my family's journey with mental health, all of that was written with, my sister and I wrote that together. And I think the message here that I really want people to hear is that there is opportunity to influence your story. And just because you might think you're a little different or you might not know what's going on, it's okay to ask for help. And I wish my sister would have asked for help. And I think that's a lot of why I'm doing this, is to help to encourage people to ask for help. There's nothing embarrassing about this. My sister, fortunately, in her situation, even though we had a tragic event happen, she's living a productive life now in the community she has to live in because she has to pay some consequences. But I'm pleased with that. I think the Lord has blessed her with a mission in her life now that she's come to understand that. But there doesn't need to be a tragedy, and that's my message. And I hope that for somebody listening to this, that we want to be encouraging to you to get help, and that's okay. And let's talk about the stories. It's been amazing, the stories I've heard, and we're gonna hear a lot more. And I so appreciate what you guys are doing, and to Christine as well as Jen, please say thank you to them, because I know it might even be more courageous for them to step out and talk about this. But now I do have the privilege to bring forward a proclamation for Mental Health Month. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas all Minnesotans experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives, and whereas mental health is a continuum from good mental health to a serious mental illness, and whereas with early and effective treatment, those people with mental illnesses can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government, agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen shares the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental health and decrease the stigma and discrimination surrounding mental illnesses. Therefore, the City Council of the City of Lakeville does hereby proclaim May 2015 as Mental Health Month in Lakeville, Minnesota. We call upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in this city to recommit our community to increase awareness and understanding of how to promote good mental health, the steps our citizens can take to help those experiencing a mental illness. And that'll be signed by the mayor.
Thank you. That's an awesome message of hope and encouragement.
Thank you guys so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for your time this evening.
Yes,
Best
thank you
of
again.
luck, safe ride.
Thank you.